Yeah, let me pull up the script again because I don't know where the script went.
How dare you not have the script on hand?
I know. Actually, where is? Oh, I see what it is because I have a separate.
You lost it.
I have a separate web browser for Story Sirens. Okay, and I was going to the wrong web browser.
We're in a separate web browser
or a separate profile. That way, I don't have to keep swapping profiles when I'm trying to access our Google Drive and all that sort of stuff.
Very true.
And anyway, welcome to Story Sirens, the podcast where we deep dive into our favorite myths and legends with a whole lot of laughter in between.
We also cover myths, legends, and mysteries from our favorite books, TV shows, and films.
Ooh, yes. And today's episode is coming straight out of one of Yinny's comfort films, which I find strange, but I love and accept my best friend, and she totally didn't write this into the script.
I did not. I totally didn't. Today we are deep diving into Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, a dark fantasy film that has many layers and mythical creatures that are both beautiful and frightening.
Yep. And Yenny, before you go too far into your history with it, I do briefly want to say, because I think our fans will get a kick out of this, I was introduced to Pan's Labyrinth and Attack on Titan in the same day.
Oh.
It was a roller coaster.
Wow. Yeah, I bet.
So, but yes, comfort movie. I neither of those I would consider comfort media. But Yenny, would you explain this, please?
All right, Sarah's not lying. It really is one of my comfort movies, which is strange because I am a chicken. I don't like horror, but
I thought I was weird for the Hunger Games being like my comfort movies. I was like, oh, this is so weird. But come on.
Listen.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Back in 2006, DirecTV was a big deal in my household, and I spent days on end on the couch looking at new films available.
Okay, that is fun.
On one fateful day, I came across Pan's Labyrinth, and so began my obsession with the movie. Mind you, in 2006, I was around the age of the main character, Ophelia, and seeing this movie gave me the creeps, but also enchanted me all the same. Many felt as I did, because this movie is known as one of the greatest films in the 2000s, and even has a spot as one of the best fantasy films ever made. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. Do you ever notice how, there is something about sort of the magical and dark that just, kids are fascinated by?
Yeah, because I was never scared by it.
Yeah.
And I was her age during that time. And we'll go a little bit into why I think a lot of people that were Ophelia's age or kids that watched the movie
really resonated. Yeah, really resonated with it.
So we'll touch a little bit more base on that a little bit ahead, okay?
Mm-hmm.
As I grew, every time I watched this movie, I loved it more, and then also understood it better with time. The film incorporates the dark side of real-world political issues during the 1940s, the innocent mind of a shy yet brave 10-year-old girl, and the terrifyingly beautiful mythical creatures who only those who are chosen may see. Now, I said I was going to talk about it later, but I feel like now is the right time to talk about it.
Okay.
Throughout the movie, Ophelia is never actually scared of the mythical creatures. Only one.
I was going to say there is, but yes, I do realize now which part you're talking about. Yeah.
And I believe that is a reason why kids are able to watch the film and not immediately get scared, because as the protagonist, she does not show her fear.
Yes.
So that's why I never was scared. I mean, I looked at the creature and I was like, oh, that's a little scary.
Yeah, but you're almost just as enchanted as she is.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Today, we're going to be focusing on those key mythical figures in the movie and also deep diving into the legends around them, as well as loosely covering the movie. While we won't try to spoil too much, we're going to be covering really big plot moments. So honestly, here's your warning. Spoilers ahead. The story begins with a fairy tale about Princess Moana.
Not Moana of Montanui.
No, definitely not.
Different Moana.
Daughter of the king of the underworld. Completely different Moana.
Completely different. Which I will say, when I rewatched this movie a few months ago in preparation for this, I was like, Moana?
Yeah, Moana.
All right.
Yeah.
It'd been years since I'd seen the movie. Totally forgot about that. But anyway, yes. Princess of the daughter of the king of the underworld, whatever.
Yes. Princess Moana always dreamt of the human realm, wanting to feel the light breeze and the sun's rays. One day, she escapes and visits the human world, but immediately the sun blinds her with its shining light, and she loses all memory of the past. In the human world, and without her memory, she becomes mortal, experiencing pain and sickness. In a few years, she passes.
Oh.
The king, filled with sadness, vowed to wait for her soul to return to him, knowing that she would be reincarnated.
Oh.
Yeah, it's sad. Our first immediate thought of the underworld gives us the impressions of a place of nightmares. But in this story, the underworld is a place filled with peace and no pain. There is no mention of Hades or Satan or anything demonic or grotesque. You get the point. In this particular universe where the film is from, it seems that the underworld is just maybe dark and gloomy, but not necessarily scary. The king was right to believe his daughter would return, for she did, but as a girl named Ophelia, born in a tumultuous time, 1930s Spain to be exact. The film takes place around 1944 in Francoist Spain.
A quick history lesson for our listeners. Spain was under the dictatorship of Francisco Franco from 1936 to 1975. While during World War II, they did not actively join the Axis powers, Italy, Germany, Japan. They did support them in other ways, which led to Spain being isolated from many other countries after the end of the war. After Franco's death in 1975, his dictatorship came to an end, and Spain would transition to democracy.
The movie begins at the end, and then transitions to the past, a time right before the opening of the scene.
Kind of like how the Odyssey begins at the end, kinda sorta.
Exactly. Ophelia is currently experiencing a change in her life as she is thrown, unbeknownst to her, right in the middle of a heavily political atmosphere. Her stepfather, Captain Vidal, is a very stern and unmoving civil guard, tasked to find, interrogate, and execute any Spanish Maquis.
The Maquis consisted of rebels against the Franco regime. Throughout the years of Franco's reign, the Maquis worked tirelessly to ensure havoc and chaos, committed robberies, all to support the rebel groups, and even assassinated any Francoists. They also contributed to the fight against Nazi Germany. Unfortunately, the rebels would disappear by the 1960s, 15 years before Spain would ever get to see democracy.
Throughout the movie, we are given snippets of Captain Vidal's heinous actions toward rebels, the audience being shown that not only is he a fascist, but also sexist, violent, and condescending to those around him. He deems himself as the perfect man and swears that his wife, Ophelia's mother, will be having a boy. We also get glimpses of the rebels at work, trying to stop Francoists from succeeding.
But enough about him. Let's talk more about Ophelia.
Ophelia is a shy yet curious 10-year-old girl, a lover of fairy tales, who isn't exactly jumping for joy at her mother being married to the serious captain, nor that her mother has begun feeling a bit ill.
Uh-oh.
But she is happy about her new sibling on the way.
Oh, it's morning sickness. Got it.
It's morning sickness, that's what we'd like to think.
Right.
As they travel to the captain's home, Ophelia's pregnant mother has a bout of car sickness, and they all stop for her.
Good.
Ophelia walks along the road and finds a stone with an eye carved into it. Walking a bit further into the forest near the road, she finds a pillar of a man with his mouth open and a missing eye. Cue the rock.
Oh.
Placing the rock in, Ophelia is greeted by a walking stick insect who flutters around her before leaving. Ophelia is tempted to follow, believing that it's a fairy, but is stopped by her mother. When they arrive at her new stepfather's manor, she sees the insect there, waiting for her, and guides her towards an old stone labyrinth. She does not get too far in before the housekeeper, Mercedes, guides her back towards the home. But fate has other plans, and the walking stick meets her at night, transforming into a fairy.
Now, we've spoken about fairies before in this podcast, specifically in episode 19. But a quick recap. There are many different types of fairies. We believe that the fairies shown in Guillermo del Toro's film seem to be pixies, or at least closely related to. As mentioned in episode 19, pixies are mischievous and tiny, fairy-like creatures who love dancing in the moonlight to the songs of frogs and crickets. Pixies love to prank humans and usually lead them on until they get lost somewhere. While the pixies in this movie are less on the pranking side and more on the guardian and guiding and friend side, they do lead Ophelia to the labyrinth, as well as guide her throughout the film, sort of kickstarting the magic that happens in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The fairy leads Ophelia away from the house and into the stone labyrinth once again. Finally, Ophelia is brought to what seems to be the center and meets a beautifully grotesque creature, a faun.
And no, nature enthusiasts, we don't mean a baby deer.
This also reminds me, every time I hear baby deer, I think of a doe, a doe.
A female deer.
Now, forget about that because nothing about this is happy and go lucky. So, while Ophelia is naturally taken aback by the humanoid goat's features, including gray skin, sharp and dirty teeth, elongated hands, milky white eyes, and startling horns, she quickly finds comfort in him. In comparison, the faun is taken aback by Ophelia, asking immediately,
"Is it you?"
When Ophelia asks for the faun's name, he responds,
"I've had so many names, old names, that only the wind can pronounce as well as the trees. I am the mountain, the forest, and the earth. I am a faun."
Let's chat about what a faun is. In Roman mythology, a faun is a mythical creature that is half human and half goat. They are happy creatures who are lovers of the forest, music, and beautiful women, too. From the waist up, they look like a handsome male human, but from the waist down, they have hairy legs, hooves for feet, and a goat's tail to match. They're known to have horns and pointed ears as well. In Greek culture, fauns are linked to Pan, god of the wild, or more specifically, the god of shepherds, mountains, and forests, fertility, and rustic music. You could presume that the faun Ophelia meets could very well be Pan himself. I personally like to think so as well. But it is not canon.
So then why is the film called Pan's Labyrinth if it's not Pan?
That, my darling bestie, is because of a translation error.
Oh, really?
Really. The movie we are covering today is a Spanish-Mexican film, with the original title being El Labyrinto del Fauno. When translated into English, they placed Pan as the direct translation of Fauno, which to me makes no sense because the literal translation would be faun.
Yeah.
I mean, really, someone should have thought that a little bit more through.
Agreed. I mean, as an English speaker, the words are right there.
I have no idea.
And this is why.
It makes no sense.
This is why, for all of our translation friends and etymology and word fiends, this is why whenever I would have to sing in Italian and French or German, they have the quote unquote poetic translation right there. But my professors were always like, you have to go in and translate it word for word so that you can actually understand what you're saying. Because sometimes the poetic translation sounds really pretty, but guess what? That's not what you're singing.
Yeah, and it's the same thing here.
Yeah.
Back to our film's story. The faun immediately breaks the news to Ophelia that she is no ordinary girl, but Princess Moana, the princess of the underworld.
What every girl wants to hear.
Ophelia disagrees with the faun, but the faun insists that she is no daughter of man. Nay, but the daughter of the king of the underworld. In fact, the faun states that her real father had left portals for them to travel back to the underworld. And because he says this, it makes it seem as though the faun is part of the underworld as well, and was tasked to live in the human realm until Moana's reincarnation would find him.
Oh, he's been waiting.
He has. The last portal available was the one the fairy had led Ophelia to. But before they can travel back to the underworld, the fawn states they must ensure Ophelia is the true reincarnation and has not lost the essence of self and turned fully into a mortal. Which, I mean, you literally told her she was a princess and now you got to tell her she got to take a test? I mean, come on.
This fawn has been asleep for way too long. She's 10. She is 10 years old. It's the middle of the night, and you're just cramming her with new information like it's nothing? I understand it's exposition for the movie, but like in real life, this makes no sense!
No sense at all. But alas, it's a movie. He asks for her to complete 3 tasks before the next full moon. So a little under a month. Easy, right?
Totally.
He hands her a book that will show her exactly what she needs to do, and then vanishes into the darkness. Once opened, the book has empty pages, but the instructions will appear at the right time.
Is the book a Horcrux?
I think so. Now, per Guillermo, the fawn is both a creature of nurturing and destruction, able to guide Ophelia to either her success or her demise. Neither good nor evil, and all dependent on Ophelia's actions. Keep that in mind.
True neutral, like nature itself. Got it.
The first task is to retrieve a key from a giant toad, which Ophelia completes, albeit getting rather slimy and muddy in the process.
Much to her mother's dismay.
Oh, super, because her mom made her a little dress and everything. Like I said, we're not going to be going in too deep into the film, just covering all the main parts. She brings the key back to the fawn, who is happy with her obedience. Remember that word, obedience. And success in the first task. He tells her to keep the key, but also hands her a piece of chalk, which she will surely need for the next task. Ophelia is still a bit scared of the fawn, and questions how she can believe what he says is true. To which he dramatically says,
"Why would a poor little fawn like me lie to you? Sir, you're 7 feet tall."
And you don't brush your teeth. So, mind you, while he's telling her this, he's like eating like what looks like a piece of meat from like, I guess, a rabbit he skinned or something.
Yeah, he's eating something.
So, Ophelia's pride in accomplishing the first task is short-lived. She wakes up and grabs her book, hoping to have the next task present itself. But instead, the pages turn blood red.
The red color spreads across the pages like a Rorschach test ink blot and resembles a uterus and ovaries.
Immediately, she quickly goes to her mother, sensing something is wrong, and finds her mother hemorrhaging. Her sickness has gotten worse, and as a girl who was taken from everything she knew and pushed into a new life with a less than desirable stepfather, her mother is the only thing she has left. During this time, she becomes close to the housekeeper Mercedes, who is working alongside the rebels and acting as a spy.
She might be my favorite character. I love her.
The fawn visits Ophelia in her room at night, asking why she has not continued on with the second task. Ophelia shares with him that her mother is very sick, only to receive a pretty rude reaction from the fawn. Just because your mom is sick doesn't mean, you can stop. Hello, we have a time limit here, 1 month.
This is also, I'd like to interject, this is where we can also see the fawn has absolutely zero interest in the affairs of humanity, whereas Ophelia is torn between the two. The fawn wants Ophelia to resume her task and become princess of the underworld once again, understandably, but Ophelia, if she truly is the reincarnated princess of the underworld, is a child of 2 worlds right now.
The fawn tells Ophelia that she can save her mother from the illness by placing a mandrake root under her bed. The root is to be placed in a bowl of fresh milk and must be fed 2 drops of blood every day. Okay, now hold that thought on the mandrake root.
What? Yenny, we aren't going to go a bit more in depth with that?
We can't because Ophelia immediately goes into her second task.
My gosh, this girl works quick. But she does only have a month to do everything. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Upon opening the book, the second task is revealed. Steal a dagger.
Oh, we're going into theft now. Okay.
Yeah, come on now.
Great.
Come on. Yeah, a Grand Theft Auto 10-year-old style. Except there's no auto. Grand Theft Dagger.
Also, wrong Latin country.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the magic chalk that was given to her by the fawn, Ophelia must draw a door using said chalk, and its magic will bring the door to life.
I'm sorry. I know I've interrupted a lot, but like
Chalk Zone?
Is anybody getting flashbacks to Chalk Zone? Anybody? Okay. All right. I'm glad it wasn't just me. Continue.
Right after giving her the mandrake root, the faun told her about the second task, giving her a bag with his fairies inside and an hourglass.
Interesting.
The instructions are made very clear.
Uh-oh.
Do not eat or drink anything from the place you'll be visiting, for it is a dangerous place. And you must come back from whence you came before the last drop of sand falls to the bottom of the hourglass. And beware, what lies in there is not human.
Great. So we have theft, we have a time limit, and we can't eat.
And you can die.
And you could die. Yeah, this is... All right, cool.
Ophelia shrugs it off.
Let's follow the 10-year-old. Let's follow the 10-year-old.
She's like, I hold my teddy bear. I'm going at it.
Oh.
So Ophelia enters into what seems like an eerie and forgotten mansion, soon finding herself in front of a grand table filled with delicious meals.
Ah, there it is.
She loses herself in the delectable dishes until she comes face to face with a startling and horrifying creature. One that looks human, but has no eyes, pale and droopy skin with no hair, and seems to be sitting perfectly still, with a plate in front of him holding 2 eyeballs. Paintings on the walls depict the creature, the pale man, eating children. She's definitely creeped out, but continues on with her task, opening up her little bag that holds the faun's fairies, there to aid her in her search for the dagger.
Oh, help her.
They guide her toward 3 small doors, which hold a keyhole, perfectly fitting the key she retrieved from the giant toad. She opens the door and finds the dagger. But as she walks back towards her exit, she becomes entranced by a bowl of delicious and delectable grapes. The fairies try to warn her, but she could not stop herself from popping a grape into her mouth.
Bad choice, Ophelia. Bad choice.
Before we continue, this really does give me the vibe of, children's curiosity and obedience again comes in. She was told not to eat a grape, but it looks so good. And most children are, very curious about things.
Well, and self-control is not something that children are known for. I also do want to interject along with the theme of obedience and disobedience. I know we're not going too in-depth into the movie, but Yenny mentioned that Ophelia had the key and there were 3 doors she could choose from. The fairies wanted her to open a particular door. She didn't open the door they pointed to. She opened a different door, and that was where the dagger was. So there's a struggle there between her following her instincts, her blindly obeying, and then her also just falling prey to the fact that she's a kid. So there's a lot of things going on.
That's actually a really good point, and I didn't bring it up because I thought, well, maybe we could just shove it off, but you're right. It's obedience. Another portion of obedience that we're going to be covering a little bit later on.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, but I think that's like the first time she disobeys the magic.
Disobeys.
Because she's disobeyed her mother, which, that's to be expected of a child, but I think this is like the first time she disobeys the magic.
Yes. Immediately, the pale man comes to life, breathing in fresh air and applying the eyeballs on the tray into holes in his hands. Ophelia is unaware of the pale man's awakening, continuing to eat grapes and swatting away the fairies who continuously try to pull her away from the food and towards the exit. As a means to protect Ophelia, the fairies fly toward the pale man, who swats them away before grabbing 2 of them and eating their heads before Ophelia's eyes.
Oh my gosh, I hate it!
It's a very bloody scene.
I hate him so much, he creeps me out!
A terrified Ophelia races back to the magical door, just as the last bit of sand in the hourglass falls and the door shuts in her face. Quickly, noticing that the pale man is coming, Ophelia finds a little bit left of that magic chalk and tries to redo the door. But the chalk breaks because she's so nervous. So she grabs the chair, trying to get on top of it and drawing another door with the little bit of chalk that she has left. And narrowly missing the pale man's grasp, she is able to go through that door and find herself again in her room. Here, there's a little scene where maybe before we thought this was all a dream, she hears thuds from underneath her floor. So,
like the pale man's knocking on the door to get in there? Yeah. I hate him so much. I hate him. Yeah. We're gonna take a small break from the horror, and we're just going to do a little bit of context and symbolism here. While there is no particular myth or legend about this specific pale man, Guillermo del Toro does mention that the mythical creature he created was inspired by Homer's Cyclops and Francisco Goya's painting of Saturn devouring his son, which, if y'all know that painting, one, it's horrific, two, the circumstances under which it was painted were horrific. There is lots of religious imagery in this particular scene of the movie. The eyes of the pale man being present on a platter are an allusion to the Catholic saint Lucy, who is often depicted with her own eyes on a platter before her. Del Toro was also inspired by how the Catholic Church helped further the cause of fascist dictators during the Spanish Civil War, enjoying the fruits of others' labor while the common man starved. Throughout this portion of the movie, the scene shifts from Ophelia and the Pale Man to Captain Vidal hosting a dinner for important guests. The Pale Man and the Captain sit in the same place at the dinner table and offer their guests indulgences in exchange for their compliance in his evil. But back to Ophelia.
Wow.
Also, side note, they both also have like the fireplace behind them, which kind of looks like the gates of hell and everything. So I mean, just like Vidal and the Pale Man, very similar. I hate them both. Anyway, back to Ophelia.
We hate them. The next morning, Ophelia takes the mandrake root and does just as she's told. The mandrake root unfolding once placed into the bowl of milk and beginning to act as a baby, perhaps mimicking the baby currently inside her mother's womb. Almost instantly after placing it under her mother's bed, her mother begins to feel better, solidifying Ophelia's trust in the fawn.
Because the fawn's who gave her the mandrake root, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but she had to do her task first. She had to finish that. She couldn't help her dying mother at that point. She had to wait 24 hours. I understand. But what is a mandrake root? Surely it's not the same one from Harry Potter's herbology class, where they needed earmuffs to protect their hearing from a wailing plant.
A mandrake root is a thick, forked root of a perennial herb, which is a type of plant that lives longer than 2 years. In simpler terms, it is a plant that can grow for more than one season and will, quote-unquote, die or go dormant during winter, only to return in the springtime. This is because they regrow from their roots. Mandrakes have been associated with fertility for centuries, and many believe this is because the shape of most mandrake roots eerily resemble a body. The mandrake root can also have somewhat concerning symptoms. The roots contain alkaloid, and if consumed, you can have hallucinations or even go into a coma. So I'm just letting you know it's a 50-50 shot. Don't risk it.
And also, I will interject that back in ancient Greece, they actually used mandrake root because of the alkaloid to perform surgeries on people because it would knock them out.
You have what you have. It's going to be an alkaloid. It's going to be a chloroform. It's going to be alcohol. Whatever it takes, just knock them out. So it would not take long for its odd resemblance to that of a human body and its ability to drug a person heavily to begin being associated with magic and witchcraft and the other.
Yes. During Ophelia's time giving the mandrake root a bit of her blood under her mother's bed, the captain and the doctor caring for her mother walk in. Now, she's under the bed because she is definitely scared of Captain Vidal. She is not okay with him.
Absolutely. And she should be. He's terrified.
Yeah. The captain makes it clear that if they should have to choose between his wife and the baby, choose the baby.
Oh.
This, of course, greatly saddens Ophelia, who comes out from under the bed after they leave and asks her little brother to not hurt their mother. Should he promise to keep her mother safe, she would take him to her kingdom and make him a prince.
Oh, poor Ophelia. Can we also just pause again to acknowledge the fact that the captain is almost on the the captain is on the opposite side of the faun, but here we have the faun who only cares about the magical aspects of Ophelia's life, and here's the captain who only cares about his own interests in the human world of the life.
Lineage.
So again, no one cares about, what Ophelia cares about.
Yeah. A few days pass and Ophelia's mother's health continues to improve. At night, Ophelia is once again greeted by the faun, who is happy to hear of her mother's improvement. But the pleasantries do not last, for Ophelia shows the faun that things didn't go as planned, stating there was an accident during her last task. His 3 fairies are no more. Only one remains, and that fairy quickly tells him that Ophelia did not obey. Angered by her actions, the faun begins to yell.
You have failed! You may never return! Your spirit shall forever remain among the humans. You shall age like them. You shall die like them. And all memory of you shall fade in time, and we will vanish along with it. You will never see us again. Yenny, that's a bit much. She's a 10-year-old. Don't you think this is a little much?
I mean, we also have animes about 12-year-olds that go into war in a Gundam suit, so Ophelia doesn't stay too long thinking about her potential loss of being princess of the underworld. Not when her mother is becoming healthy again, and a new baby brother is on the way. Continuing her daily ritual of giving the mandrake root under her mother's bed a bit of blood, things start taking a turn for the worse.
Of course.
The captain catches her in the act. Disgusted by the mandrake root and Ophelia's actions, he rips the mandrake root from the bowl. Her mother instantly wakes up and begs for her husband to leave her alone. He obliges, shoving the mandrake root into her mother's arms, which shows here a little bit of he doesn't really care about her.
Yeah.
You start seeing a difference in him. In fact, while Ophelia was going on with the pale man, the mother and him sort of have a back and forth because she's trying to tell the table about their wonderful love story, and Captain Vidal doesn't give a shit. He's like, that's not important.
Yeah.
So we start seeing a difference in Captain Vidal and Ophelia's mother's relationship.
As if it wasn't obvious from him telling the doctor, if it comes down to my wife or the baby, save the baby.
Yeah. And he says it in front of her face.
Yeah.
So it's something where we start seeing that Ophelia's mother is not only falling ill, but forgetting about love and hope.
She's trapped too.
Yeah. When questioned about what the thing is, Ophelia explains that it's a magic root the faun gave her, and that it really has healed her. Ophelia's mother tells her she needs to grow up and stop believing in fairy tales. She tells her the world has no place for such things, for it is cruel, and she too will learn that soon, which breaks my heart.
It's so sad.
She throws the mandrake root into the fire, and the root begins to writhe and wail in pain. Her mother begins to feel the exact same thing the root is feeling.
Terrifying.
And so things get bad.
Oh, no.
Now, during this same time, the captain is busy interrogating a rebel and calls the doctor to try and keep the rebel alive for a little bit longer, to interrogate him further. Unbeknownst to the captain, the doctor is also a supporter of the rebel group, and instead of keeping the prisoner alive, he euthanizes him. Feeling disrespected by the doctor's actions, the captain kills him. At the same moment, the maids rush to the captain to let them know that Ophelia's mother is giving birth. Because of the fact that he killed the only doctor that really knew how to care for Ophelia's mother, the captain calls forth a troop doctor to tend for his wife. Ophelia sits there, watching blankets soaked in blood leave the bedroom and hearing her mother's painful cries, followed by the cry of a baby. And soon enough, Ophelia's mother dies. The scene cuts to her mother's funeral, with the captain carrying the babe and smiling down at him instead of grieving the loss of his wife.
Or, comforting his stepchild, but, why would he care?
Yeah, no.
He got what he wanted.
Which is the lineage.
Mm-hmm.
Ophelia, now basically an orphan, is being cared for by Mercedes, the housekeeper. But things are not looking well for our spy. The captain is on to her, and she must leave. Ophelia begs to go with Mercedes, and finally she obliges, only for them to get caught while escaping.
No!
The captain locks Ophelia in her room and takes Mercedes off to interrogate. Thankfully, Mercedes is able to escape, but not without wounding the captain as much as she can. Go Mercedes.
Good for her.
Ophelia has been locked in her room this whole time, but to her surprise, the remaining fairy comes back. The faun appears as well, stating he will give her another chance. He asks for her to do what he says, without question, and Ophelia agrees. The faun gives her the final task: bring her little brother to the labyrinth as quickly as possible. Ophelia is confused as to why her brother is needed, and also mentions that she's been locked in and unable to leave. The faun gives her another of his magical chalks, telling her to create her own little door.
Another example of, is this all in her head or is this real? Because she's locked in her room and suddenly she's magically out.
Yes. Yeah. Doing as told, Ophelia sneaks into the captain's room, where her baby brother is. An injured captain realizes that someone's been in his room, for Ophelia accidentally leaves the magical chalk on his desk. But before he could find her, he's pulled away due to rebel business, and Ophelia uses the chance to grab her brother. But not before adding a little drug into the captain's favorite tequila. Right as she's leaving, she is caught by the captain, but is able to escape due to him being drugged.
Way to plan ahead, girl.
During this escape, the manor is in disarray as the rebels have begun their coordinated attack on the place. The captain does not care about the ongoing attack, and instead follows Ophelia as she races towards the labyrinth. At the same time, Mercedes is searching the grounds for her.
Oh, she came back for Ophelia.
Upon reaching the center of the labyrinth, Ophelia meets the faun. The faun asks for her brother, stating that the moon is almost full and the portal will soon open. But Ophelia staggers back, noticing the faun is holding the dagger she retrieved from the pale man's lair. The faun recites,
"The portal may only open if we offer the blood of an innocent. A pinprick is all. It's the final task."
Of course, Ophelia refuses, and this angers the faun once more. She stands firm. She will not draw her brother's blood. The faun presses forward.
"You would give up your sacred rights for this brat you barely know? You would give up your throne for him? He who caused you such misery and humiliation."
Ophelia says yes. She would give up everything for him. During her back and forth with the faun, the captain finally makes it to the center of the labyrinth, yet sees Ophelia speaking to herself, for he cannot see the faun. The faun looks at Ophelia for a moment, before leaving her to do as she wishes. The captain reaches for her, taking his son and shooting her.
Ah!
Ophelia falls to the ground, and we are brought back to the scene from the beginning of the movie, showing a bloodied Ophelia watching the blood from her hands drip into the center of the labyrinth. Mercedes is unable to reach her in time, and hums a lullaby as she begins drifting away.
Poor Mercedes. Poor Ophelia. Oh my gosh.
At that moment, the king of the underworld's voice is heard, telling his daughter to rise. Ophelia finds herself in a great hall, with her father, the king of the underworld, waiting for her, and her mother beside him.
"You have spilled your own blood rather than the blood of an innocent. That was the final task, and the most important."
She is then greeted by all the fairies and the faun as well, who proudly tells her that she has completed all her tasks, and the people of the underworld cheer for her return. Princess Ophelia would go on to reign the underworld with justice and a kind heart for many centuries. She was beloved by all, and left behind small traces of her time on Earth, only visible to those who knew where to look. Whew, that was a lot. So many tragic things.
So, she dies?
Well, not exactly. She apparently lives for centuries ruling her people.
After she dies?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And what happens to her baby brother? Mercedes? The captain? Come on.
Well, the ending is subject to the viewer's interpretation. And remember, we did say we were only covering Ophelia's side.
Okay, well, hold on. Mercedes gets the baby from the captain. She shoots the captain. Mercedes takes the baby. Captain's dead. Mercedes and the baby can go live. All right.
Sarah, you're supposed to let them watch the movie.
They can still watch it.
Oh my gosh. Anywho, like I said, the ending is subject to the viewer's interpretation. Perhaps none of the creatures we see in Pan's Labyrinth are real. Just a figment of Ophelia's overly active imagination.
I mean, the girl is 100% traumatized. She's just trying to cope.
These creations could have been made as a way to cope, like Sarah says, with all of the changes happening in her life. Her father's untimely death, her mother remarrying and becoming pregnant with another child, which results into them moving to the captain's home due to her increasing sickness. As the tasks continue, they get darker, starting with grabbing a key from a toad to having to spill her baby brother's blood.
Ugh.
In the same way, as the film progresses, Ophelia's mental health deteriorates as her fear of her stepfather heightens and her mother passes. Plus, her only friend Mercedes gets captured. She doesn't even know that Mercedes makes it.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
This theory could be solidified for some as the captain sees Ophelia speaking to no one in particular during the final scene, making her look as though she's lost it.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, maybe all of these creatures are very much real, but only visible to the eyes of Ophelia, an innocent child who truly believes in fairy tales. The movie is mainly in her point of view, and there is no other child around that could perhaps see what she is seeing. So it is up to us to believe her or not. Do you believe her?
Oh, I totally believe her. Absolutely believe her.
I believe her too.
My husband doesn't believe her, but I do.
Oh, come on.
I know. Jared
Neither
thinks.
does Alex.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jared thinks it's a total tragedy and it's all in her head to cope, which is a totally understandable viewpoint. But I believe there's enough evidence to point to all of it was real.
There you go. There's also a common trend throughout the film: disobedience. I told you we were going to cover it.
Yeah.
Ophelia constantly disobeys orders from her mother, her stepfather, the fairies, and eventually even the faun, all of which have good and bad consequences. In the same way, the adults also disobey. Mercedes disobeys the captain, and the doctor disobeys the captain as well. We can take these as moral disobediences, meaning that even though they are disobeying authority, they are doing it for the greater good.
Save for Ophelia eating those grapes. Our girl should have known better there.
Yeah, agreed. But we must remember that she's also just a child.
Yeah.
In other ways, we could see how blind obedience can hurt someone. Exactly like Ophelia's mother. She blindly follows what her new husband says, not taking into account her failing health and in turn becoming a bit cruel towards Ophelia at the end, by telling her that the world and life is cruel. This brings her untimely death, as we know, and we can't help but wonder if this would have been stopped if she too had disobeyed her husband.
I feel so bad for Ophelia's mother, especially since I know everything she chose was to help protect herself and Ophelia, and it just put them in more and more danger. Now, I'd like to take this moment to add that with quite a bit of certainty, Pan, the Greek god we mentioned earlier, never had any kind of labyrinth in his own mythos. As we mentioned before, we now know this was a translation error, and instead of being titled Pan's Labyrinth, it should have been named the Faun's Labyrinth.
But I mean, marketing, thinking about marketing, Pan's Labyrinth does seem more catchy.
I mean, yeah, it does. But what we can tell you is that perhaps the labyrinth's inspiration came to Guillermo del Toro from Greek mythology's famous architect Daedalus, who created a labyrinth on King Minos's order to keep the Minotaur imprisoned, a monster who was locked away as a child by a frightened ruler. Another episode idea, Also, I would like to mention that in mythology and storytelling, Labyrinths are a little bit different from mazes because they do symbolize a journey with an inevitable conclusion. So, playing into Ophelia's journey. But are there any other symbols we missed? At the end of the movie, when Ophelia enters the underworld, she wears a beautiful dress embroidered with red flowers. We didn't quite go into it in detail at the start of this episode because there was a lot to cover, but there is a red flower at the beginning of the film, which is what helps Princess Moana gain a human life. Thus, we can see this as Moana/Ophelia's story coming full circle. A red flower at the beginning, red flowers on her dress at the end. Also, Ophelia's moral disobedience resulted in a reward in the afterlife/underworld, while all those who blindly obeyed and stood by Captain Vidal's fascist motivations were killed and seemingly vanished from every plane of existence.
That was cool. I love that. This movie is packed with so much, and I mean, of course, it's one of the best films out there.
And we would love really to hear any details or symbolism that you caught that's just glaringly obvious to you that we didn't mention. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and you can join our Discord, which is free to join. Put it in the comments. Do any of that. We would love to hear from you. So now, let's go to modern media. In 2012, word got out that Pan's Labyrinth would be turned into a musical. Sadly, we have yet to see anything come from it. In 2018, word spread again of Del Toro working on the adaptation, but as you can see, we're still waiting.
In 2020, Guillermo del Toro teamed up with the author Cornelia Funk and illustrator Alan Williams to create Pan's Labyrinth, the Labyrinth of the Faun, which transforms the film into a dark fantasy novel, which I will be buying.
I so need to check that out.
I didn't know. I had no idea there was a book.
That's so cool.
But I like that they name it correctly, the Labyrinth of the Faun.
It gets both names. All right, time for your siren call. Well, surprise, surprise. Watch Pan's Labyrinth on Prime Video. It's available to buy or rent. And should you have a subscription, it's available to stream on Paramount Plus or Apple TV.
Ooh, this was a good episode. Very creepy, but also filled with symbolism and just it was nice to do something different because I don't think we had done a movie.
We haven't done a movie, but
so this was our first.
I really enjoyed this, and I think we should do some more movies.
Absolutely. Maybe this summer.
Ooh, I like how your brain's working. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Story Sirens. You can follow us on Instagram at Story Sirens Podcast. Want to support us? Send us a cup of Ko-fi by searching ko-fi.com/storysirens. We've got lots of treats for those who become siren seekers. All research materials can be found in the episode summary. Music by Donald Guzzi and artwork by Alexis Torres. Story Sirens is a Feather and Fin production. See you soon.